1492 AD, 5386 AM. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain attacked the last Muslim stronghold in Spain, Granada, the Muslims surrendering. The Islamic domination of the Iberian Peninsula was over. The Muslim administration was dismantled, and the discovery that Jews were among those holding the highest offices in Moorish government enraged the crown. It was long remembered that it was the Jews that allowed the Muslim invasions over 780 years previously. The crown ordered the Spanish Inquisitor General Torquemada to give the Jews residing within the Spanish realm 3 months to either convert to Christianity or leave the country. Those remaining after the August 2nd deadline would be killed, imprisoned, or reduced to slavery. All of Europe celebrated at the news spread that Christians were now in control of all Spain. An estimated 800,000 Jews departed the Spanish realm, many leaving properties behind, and their estates were lost. This mass exodus of Jews was from the Kingdom of Castile, Catalonia, Aragon, Galicia, Majorca, Minorca, the Basque provinces, the islands of Sardinia and Sicily, as well as the Kingdom of Valencia. They had already 9 years priorly been driven out of the Kingdom of Andalusia. All these realms were under Ferdinand and Isabella. The expulsion of the Jews was not difficult, for the Jews do not assimilate with the local population, but hold themselves and their culture apart and are easily identifiable. The Jews are descended from Judahites and Edomites, and thus are a branch of the ancient Israelite family of nations that had by this date filled Europe and the Mediterranean countries. This year of the Jewish expulsion was exactly 2898 years, 414 times 7, after the Israelites settled in the land of Canaan in 1407 BC. On April 17th, Christopher Columbus, Christianized Spanish name, who was born Cristobal Colon of Genoa, a Jew, was given permission and granted 3 ships with provisions for his voyage west over the Atlantic in search of India, to secure a better route for the spice trade. He was ordered not to set sail until August the 2nd, which was the expulsion date for the Jews, as hundreds of vessels left the ports full of Jewish families. Some believe that this was a coincidence, a mystery, but the facts are clear. Ferdinand and Isabella knew Columbus was Jewish, and they did this to make a statement that even he was not exempt. Columbus departed from the Gulf of Cadiz with his fleet, the Nina, the Pita, and the Santa Maria. Historians estimate that 1/4 to 1/3 of Columbus's crew were Jewish, including the ship's doctor, a surgeon, navigator, and a Hebrew interpreter. The expulsion date of August the 2nd was the anniversary date of the second destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. On their voyage west, they witnessed a bright meteor burst over the ocean, falling across the sky. Columbus landed in San Salvador, thinking that he had made it to India. He then sailed to Cuba, where he lost his Santa Maria aground before returning to China. It is interesting that the popularized discovery of America was the same year and time of year as the relocation of hundreds of thousands of Jewish migrants, for the United States would become the greatest Israelite empire the world had ever seen. As Ephraim, it would be the empire of adoption, fulfilling the role of cities of refuge, so popular under Israelite law. Columbus was influenced in part by the travels of Marco Polo, and in fact, in Seville, there is a surviving copy of Travels with marginal notes written by the hand of Columbus. Further, in a series of lawsuits filed later, it was revealed that Columbus had access to Vatican archives, which had references to Viking voyages in the New World spanning back several centuries. Some believe that the famous Vinland map was in this archive. This was 130 years after the Norse-Goth expedition across North America that left behind the Kensington runestone in 1362. In another parallel, in this year Martin Behaim constructed the first globe of the world. The Jews are also expelled from Italy. 1. March of the Titans. 3. History in quotations. 4. The Discoverers. 5. Pirates and the Lost Templar Fleet. 7. A Short History of the World. 9. Jewish Supremacism. 1494 AD, 5388 AM. The Sephardic Jews used a printing press to produce copies of the Hebrew Pentateuch with commentaries. the Jews who were immigrants in a Muslim country. This was 54 years after the invention of the printing blocks and press by Costa of Harlem in 1440, one of the discoverers. 1496 AD, 5390 AM. The Jews are expelled from Portugal and from Naples, one Jewish supremacism. 1497 AD, 5391 AM. Amerigo Vespucci explored the South American coast until 1499. The Italian navigator's name is a coincidence that caused an error to be published in 1507, claiming that the Americas were named after Amerigo, which is untrue. John Cabot, an Italian navigator, famous for bringing the first Europeans to the North American shores, excluding earlier Viking, Goth and Phoenician visits, sailed from Bristol, England to North America. Interestingly, in 1955 AD, a letter was found among the Spanish government archives, written by a John Day of Bristol, England, to the person of Christopher Columbus. This letter specifically mentioning a map of North America. Leonardo da Vinci drew a sketch of a man-powered flying machine. 1. Ancient Mysteries. 2. Wars of Gods and Men, the Pyramid Wars. 1498 AD, 5392 AM. Vasco da Gama of Portugal sailed from Europe all the way around Africa, across the Arabian Sea and Indian Ocean to arrive in Calicut, a voyage unrivaled and overshadowing even that of Columbus. It was a successful route for the spice trade nations of Asia that the Spanish and Portuguese desperately sought, to the perils and inflation of the land-based trade routes that the Jews maintained secret monopolies on. Gama's voyage permanently linked the Far East to the West by sea and gave immense maritime power to the Portuguese Empire. This accomplishment would have been much later in history had not Henry the Navigator first laid down the foundation of Portuguese explorations of the world's oceans and seas. The Jews are expelled from Nuremberg, Germany. 1. Jewish supremacism. 1500 AD, 5394 AM. At least 26 comets are reported between 1500 and 1543 AD. 1. Gods of Eden, Bramley. 1501 AD, 5395 AM. Italian navigator Amerigo Vespucci sailed from Lisbon, Portugal, across the Atlantic, with the intention of sailing beyond the islands Columbus discovered. This he did, sailing the South American coastline for 2,400 miles, returning to Lisbon in 1502. This is a variant date for Vespucci's voyage. 1. The Discoverers. 1503 AD, 5397 AM. Michael de Nostradome, or Nostradamus, is born to Jewish parents who had converted to Catholicism in France, fearing the Inquisition. He is destined to be the most popular prophet ever, and for good reason. In this year, a windstorm dislodged a huge chunk of rock from a high mountain overlooking the sea at Naples, Italy. Inside the rock was found the amazing fossil of a primordial ship, and the spectators took note that the vessel was nothing like the ships of their time. An Italian historian and statesman named Giovanni Pontano was one of the many who witnessed and studied the amazing find. For other buried ships from antiquity, see 1460 and 1540 AD. 1. Secret Cities of Old South America.